A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
This time on a Wednesday, we like to get some thoughts on news that's coming out of Israel and more broadly across the Middle East. And in fact, in the news this week, Australia is very much a part of what's coming out of the Middle East, and especially from Israel, and especially the Prime Minister of Israel. Mandy Worby is back with us. Hey, Mandy, welcome.
Hello, it's good to be with you.
Mandy, let's start with, what some will recognise as a real deterioration in the diplomatic relations between Australia and Israel and over visas and all sorts of things. What have you been monitoring?
Well, earlier this year, our government withdrew a visa for former Israeli Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked. Then an Israeli civilian who happens to be an expert in the field of IT and tech R&D, his name is Hillel Fuld. He was coming out for a tech conference. He had his visa withdrawn, and now the member of the Knesset for the Knesset Constitution, Law and Justice Committee Chairman, Simcha Rothman, he's had his visa withdrawn as well the day before he was supposed to come. Now, he was coming to just talk to the Jewish community in Australia. He was going to speak in schools and Jewish groups and synagogues, what have you. They've been suffering really badly, from constant harassment, attacks, every day. Every day. Our Jewish community are in fear every day. They've had their synagogues burned. They've had their cars bombed and graffitied all over them, threats on their businesses. It's been terrible. And he was actually invited by Australian Jews. And, of course, this all blew up on the heels of our government announcing they were going to recognise a Palestinian state, on the heels of our Prime Minister claiming that Israel's Prime Minister was in denial over the Gaza situation, and the co-founder of Hamas, Mossab Hassan Youssef?
These names are not always running around in my mind, but
yes. Mossab Hassan Youssef is known as the Green Prince, who actually was the son of the founder of Hamas. He's now a Christian, and he speaks out about the truth about Hamas. Well, his father has actually come out and thanked our Prime Minister for standing with them, the co-founder of Hamas. So the Home Affairs Minister, our Home Affairs Minister, Tony Burke, said that Rothman's visa was withdrawn because, quote, if you are coming to Australia to spread a message of hate and division, we don't want you here. Australia will be a country where everyone can be safe and feel safe. He accused Rothman of intending to spread division. Now, remember after all of the attacks that's been going on for the last 2 years with the anti-Semitism and the attacks on the Jews, and then, of course, all the riots and the protests in the street, the violence, the calls for death, the standing with different terror groups. We've seen Hezbollah banners, we've seen the headbands of Hamas and all the rest of it, the Ayatollah Khamenei, all of that. And then, of course, they shut down the Harbour Bridge in their peaceful protest. And while that was taking place, it was pointed out that the protesters were actually screaming and chanting death, death to the IDF and death, death to Netanyahu. The point was made that it's actually the division, the hatred and the violence and the lack of safety is not coming from the Jewish community, but from the community who is opposed to Israel and the war in Gaza. So Minister Rothman, he was denied entry, and it was primarily because of an interview that he did with the Channel 4 channel, where he was actually asked over the danger in Gaza to the civilians, in particular the children. And he responded by saying, quote, when there is a combat zone, when there is a terrorist organisation who is hiding behind civilians, you should let them run away. And if you're blocking them, you are aiding and abetting a terrorist organisation using them as human shields. That's not a moral thing to do. He then went on to say that in order to protect the civilians, and so that the terrorists can be dealt with, the nations of the world should actually welcome and accept those civilians for their own safety. And then the journalist said, well, why won't Israel take them? And of course, Mr. Rothman says they're our enemies, right? And you can't just take the children from the parents. You would have to take the whole community. Well, the whole community in Gaza have declared themselves sworn enemies of Israel. So it was for that interview that his visa was cancelled. And Mr. Rothman responded to the visa withdrawal saying that it was a surrender to terrorism and anti-Semitism that is rampant on the streets of Sydney. Now, in politics, when one nation takes a negative action against another nation, that nation, generally speaking, will respond in kind. And that is what Israel has done. But it's taken many.
So just the context here is
Yep.
when all of these cancelled visas, this started with Australia cancelling the visa
Yes.
of Jewish people who were coming here
Yes.
at the invitation of the Jewish community.
Yes.
And now we're up in arms and wondering what's going on, deterioration of
Yes.
all sorts of diplomatic relations because Benjamin Netanyahu is now cancelling Australian visas.
Yes,
Yep.
for officials. So what he's done is the visas of several, I believe it could be several, Australian representatives to the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah have had their, what do they call them, they're living there. So it's residency visas. That's what they're called. Their residency visas have been withdrawn and they're looking at other steps as well. And the Prime Minister Netanyahu has written to our Prime Minister confronting his failure to deal with the anti-Semitism in Australia and for rewarding Hamas with the acknowledgement of a Palestinian state. He has encouraged him to follow in the footsteps of US President Donald Trump to combat anti-Semitism and to replace weakness with action. He's actually would like him to get this, start doing something about it by the Jewish New Year, which is September 23 this year. And he went on to, in the letter, to say to our government that the posture toward Israel by the Australian government's not diplomacy, it's actually appeasement. And it's an encouragement to Hamas, who have said this is a reward and a result of what they did on October 7. Prime Minister Albanese has been called a weak politician who betrayed Australia's Jews. So this is from a diplomatic point of view, this is an unfolding situation. It doesn't look fantastic for the immediate future, at the very least.
You might say, well, you can imagine the Prime Minister and his thoughts, his Albo, with the encouragement to be like Donald Trump. Well, that would be, you'd be digging your heels in, wouldn't you?
I don't think, no.
Yes. Hey, there's lots more to say about that, I'm sure. For time's sake, though, let's talk about some of the other issues that have been in the news. Israel accused of targeting journalists.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's not true, but it's a sad reality that journalists, war correspondents, and the photojournalists who follow them have chosen probably one of the most dangerous careers on the planet. War correspondents have been losing their lives in conflicts around the world for ever since there was a photojournalist or a war correspondent. In fact, in the last 20 years alone, 335 journalists have died covering the conflicts in Syria, Afghanistan and Yemen. Now, in Gaza, there's been journalists who have also died. Just this last week, a journalist from Al Jazeera was killed. Now, Al Jazeera is operated and owned by Qatar, who are globally recognised as the second biggest sponsor of terrorists, and most of their journalists were members of Hamas. They fund Hamas. It's not a secret. The journalist who was killed was Anas al-Sharif. He joined Hamas on December 3, 2013. Let me give you a few stats about him, okay, this journalist. His full name is Anas Jamal Mahmoud al-Sharif, and his Hamas military number is 305342. His personal ID number is 402-504-591. He, in fact, joined Hamas on his 17th birthday in 2013. He was a Hamas commander of a terrorist cell responsible for rocket and mortar attacks against Israel, along with other terrorist activities, going back to 2013 when he joined. I could go on with the whole list of all the different departments he's worked in Hamas. I could even give you his telephone number, all right? His position in Hamas was the head of terrorist cell in a Hamas-guided rockets platoon who posed as a journalist. There are videos of him with all of the leaders of Hamas, one of him hugging, holding hands and kissing the cheek of Yahya Sinwar, who was the mastermind of October 7. Under international rules of war, a soldier or a combatant is not allowed to take on the guise of a journalist or an ambulance driver or a doctor or a nurse or a priest or a kindergarten worker. They're not allowed. And then, it's not just the journalists, but it's the aid workers as well. You would have
just stay on the journalists for a few moments here, because a number of times on this program, when we've pointed out when discussing issues around propaganda, I've often drawn attention to the fact that it's Al Jazeera that actually is providing all sorts of reports for our national broadcaster, the ABC. And I've had conversations with people, and they've been very anti-Israel, and I've quizzed them, and you're getting your news only from the ABC. I said, well, look very carefully, just down in the corner of your screen, whenever there is an update of what's going on in Israel and the Middle East, you'll often see the Al Jazeera logo.
That's right.
I said, when you see that, just know that there is a tainted way, that there is a reporting that's going on.
Correct.
And the tainted way means the propaganda. Now, the interesting dimension you've just added here, Mandy, is that you've had Hamas operatives working as journalists for Al Jazeera, and you did say that that's against the international rules of war, but
yes.
but that's where the propaganda is coming from.
Yes.
People who are journalists who are very, very committed to the ideology of Hamas.
Exactly. And so, therefore, you're going to get a one-sided message, and it's going to be coloured that way. Look, we talk about the aid groups as well. You know that it's just been revealed that the World Food Kitchen, all right, which is an aid group distributing food and whatnot, that there was the IDF took out some people who were dressed as these World Kitchen, World Kitchen, Central Kitchen is what it's called, and they turned out to be, they were Hamas operatives dressed in the uniforms, of World Central Kitchen, and they even had a vehicle with the World Central Kitchen logo on it. Now, on the website of World Central Kitchen, they have the following statement, quote, World Central Kitchen condemns impersonation of aid workers in Gaza. Earlier this week, a group of armed persons were seen in Gaza posing as World Central Kitchen team members. WCK was contacted by Israel's coordinator of government activities in the territories and confirmed the vehicle and persons of interest were not affiliated with World Central Kitchen. We strongly condemn anyone posing as World Central Kitchen or other humanitarians, as this endangers civilians and aid workers. The safety and security of our teams are our top priority, and this the point. When you pose as civilian or aid worker or a priest or an ambulance officer or a member of the press, and you're a terrorist, you are actually putting civilians in danger. And that's the whole point, because then you get this very bad PR that makes it look like Israel's targeting aid workers and reporters and they're not. They're actually terrorist operatives, and that's what Israel is having to deal with.
Just quickly, Mandy, time's short, but any progress that you've been monitoring along the lines of the ceasefire that everyone seems to be calling for?
Yeah, look, I haven't seen anything on the major news outlets, but I did see a report on a Christian news website called All Israel News. Just quietly, this was established by the author and Christian Joel Rosenberg. Okay. And it was saying that, this on Monday, that Israel received a positive response to the latest ceasefire proposal that was presented to mediators. Hamas gave its response after a meeting with the Qatari Prime Minister and senior Egyptian officials on Cairo. So it's just two days ago on Monday. And it would seem that this is because of Donald Trump's posture that Israel has he's got permission to do what you got. He actually said, we will only see the return of the remaining hostages when Hamas is confronted and destroyed. The sooner this takes place, the better the chances of success will be. So it's because of President Trump's posture on that, it looks like Hamas is feeling the pressure because Israel is about to go in there and take Gaza City. Now, Israel's position, according to an unnamed political source, told All Israel News, Israel's position has not changed. It demands a release of all the hostages and fulfillment of the other conditions defined for ending the war. Those conditions are that Hamas surrender, hand over their weapons, get out of Gaza, and then demilitarize the Strip for Israel's safety and for the safety and security of the Palestinian civilians in Gaza.
Mandy, all good points that you've been making there today, and just adds a dimension to the sorts of things that we might see in mainstream media, and as we say, sometimes not reflecting the whole story. So always appreciate that you've got some really amazing sources that you're able to call on, and that brings a little bit of a filling out, something of, flesh on the skeleton.
Thanks, Neil.
Mandy, wonderful. Thank you so much for being again with us today on 2020.
Pleasure.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.